Hello, and welcome to another one of our weekly COVID-19 JKA Karate Kata seminars. Tonight's kata is Heian Yondan, Heian number 4. Heian, as I said before, means peace or peace of mind. So if you understand all the Heian katas, you should be able to defend yourself with peace of mind. Heian 4 is a little more intricate than Heian Sandan, not necessarily more difficult. It introduces a few new techniques, including Mai and Byuchi, elbow strike, and Kosa Uke, cross block. Because one of the factors about Heian 4 that you have to consider is that there are no movements where you stand up. Once you make the first movement, you stay at the same level the whole time. So this is important to mastering the kata, is how well does your hip and head stay on the same plane as you go through the movements. Okay? So, before we go into the analysis of the kata, we'll do as we always do. We'll do the kata together to count, and then proceed. 8. Heian Yondan. You. Each. Ni. Sun. Chi. Go. Ruk. Shich. Hats. Ko. Jo. Ich. Ni. Sun. Head. Chi. Go. Ruk. Ich. Ha. Ko. Ich. Ni. Sun. Chi. Go. Ruk. Ich. Ha. Nore. 8. Okay, so first movement, Heian Yondan. Now, the first movement, same as hand 2 and 3, must drop your weight straight down and pivot on the back heel. Okay, but now the movement gets tougher because you have to do it slowly, which means you have to demonstrate, demonstrate good supporting leg control to make a smooth movement. And 2, if you don't do it correctly, your weight distribution, you're going to have trouble with the movement. Okay, starting with the hands. From here, if opponent's coming from the side, there's no time to go like, if he's punching, boom. There's no time to do anything funny with your hands first. So just block right from there. Okay? The next movement, you have to drop your hands, but do it smoothly and naturally before you go to the next block. Okay? So these 2 movements, never in the kata, for the bunkai, never in the kata will we just block, ignore the opponent, block, ignore the opponent, and then proceed. So this kata has what they call implied bunkai. So in this case, the opponent's punching, just like Heian Nidan, you block with the back of your wrist, high 1, Yoko Uke, to Jodan. Then the implied bunkai is from here, grab the wrist and strike to temple or neck. Same other side, same, you can grab the wrist and strike. This is just one possible bunkai for this kata. So people who don't drop straight down with their weight, which is every beginner who attempts this kata for the first bunch of times, they end up doing this. And the reason they can't make a smooth motion is because there's too much weight on the moving foot. So to get this down, you have to completely bend the right leg over the right toes. Then you can control the movement. Okay? Then the important thing is, as you move, transfer the weight as you make the block. Okay, smooth. And the way I was originally taught this kata was to look and block simultaneously and finish looking when you're done with the block. Same on the other side. Kind of look with the block. Okay, this would be, meaning would be, you're kind of like, pretend you don't see the opponent at home, making a block. Okay, but now, they pretty much just look in the first, maybe third of the motion. Go, look. So finishing the look before they're done making the block, which is the same as most other movements in the katas, where you detect the motion with your peripheral vision. But you don't want to look first, because it takes too much time. You got to move and look at the same time. So your body's already going that direction. The face comes around quickly, if you're doing the move quickly, before the technique is finished, and then you can kind of zero in on the person. Wait, so we have 1 and 2. Next movement. This is the Gatan Kosa Uke. Okay? Important from the ground up. Important thing is, must close the hips strongly, your back toes turn inwards, so you're pivoting on the heel. Pivoting on the back heel. To make this kind of action, you got to squeeze strongly with your groin muscles to keep the hip closed. Okay? So the block is executed from the right side and the right armpit. Some people cross their wrists here and come down. And I like to come like you're holding a baseball bat. But so that part's not too important. The important thing is that your left arm is elbows facing downward, because you're going to make a downward technique. Okay, just like you're making Gatan Barai with that arm. Then this one, you're going to find a comfortable position with your elbow as high as you can, without your shoulder rising. Okay, so ideally, if your body wasn't stopping you, you'd probably want the elbow and fist to face the target, but then the shoulder has to rise. So you find a comfortable position. For me, it's about horizontal, where I keep my shoulder down and relax. Any more starts to come up. Okay. The block is executed with the fists very close together like this. So this is consistent with one of the 3 possible bunkai for this technique. First possible one. In all cases, we're going to use an example of a front kick coming. So if a front kick's coming and you can get in really quick, okay, while they're still here, and you can kind of jam this kick. To do this, you catch the shin between your arms. So the execution of the technique would be fists apart a little bit. But you can do the same technique where you're stopping the kick, but you're punching to the shin with 1, 2, 3, 4 knuckles, kind of framing it between a little bit of space between your hands. Okay, so both of these techniques are, if your opponent, you can get in really quick and stop your opponent from gaining any momentum. However, if the kick starts to come out, it starts to build speed and power, you cannot meet it head on with this kind of technique. So then, the bunkai becomes a combination of blocking and crossing and striking the shin with the other hand. So you're blocking and striking. Blocking to the side, push the leg to the side, and strike with the right hand. Okay, so that will work for a kick that's almost fully extended. Okay, we are here. Next, Morote Uke, Augmented Block. As I said in some of my other seminars, some people come like to the hip, like this, and move their hands separately. Some people, in the old days, they almost always would come back like this and then come to Augmented Block. But as I said before, I like to move the arms together, meaning the right arm, the left arm draws to the hip, and the right arm comes back and meets it. Then they go together forward. Okay? The advantage to this Morote Uke together, which is what Morote means, is that you can make contact with the opponent at any point in the arc of this block. If you're going like this, the only time this block is augmented is at the very end. I'm not touching, I'm not touching, I'm not touching, now I'm touching. I'm touching, I'm touching, I'm touching, I'm touching. Okay? Also, these kinds of techniques, when you're doing this, you're not punching yourself in the arm, or at least there's no danger of that. So that's my preference. Not everybody does it that way. So, from Morote Uke, we have start similar to Heian Nidan. Bring loop to the left, bring your hands to the side, Keage, Joran, make sure Joran, back fist strike. Okay, Moashi Uriken. Then Mai Enpi. Okay. Or Moashi Enpi. This one, couple things. First, I described before in Heian Nidan that the book says you're simultaneously hitting the temple and kicking to the ribs. Okay, but I find, but I've never seen anybody demonstrate that, and I find that my leg's too long to do that. If I'm solidly against his temple, his body is here, I don't have room to kick. So almost anybody who demonstrates the bunkai shows this as a block to a face punch with the back of the hand. You kick to the ribs or underneath the armpit. Then you grab the opponent and you strike to the ribs. Okay? As I said in Heian Nidan, do not, when you have these movements in the kata, do not try to make a super side kick to the point where you have to lean over, because then your elbow strike will be off balance and weak. So set the movement up so that you can make a strong elbow strike. So from here, it's depending on your flexibility, it's okay to make a low one. Then you can connect with the elbow strike. Keep your posture erect. How to make a strong elbow strike? From the important is a hip twist. Pull in the groin muscles. You're pivoting on the back heel, so your toes go forward. And then, as I've said many times in this series, elbow strike does not go outside the body. My MP, or Moashi MP, travels along the ribs, then turns over at the end. So, if I don't turn my hip, this thing doesn't do much of anything. It is the hip twist that creates the moashi, the turning of this elbow strike, not the shoulder. If you use your shoulder, you'll be disconnected, arm disconnected from torso, and the technique will be weak. Moreover, so what's a proper position for finishing this? Make a shutdown, reverse punch. Keep your elbow where it is. Bring this fist until it touches the body. Simple. Okay? Don't distort or contort your shoulder to make this strike. So we have this side, then we have an adjustment step, and we have the other side. This adjustment step, in the old days we didn't have an adjustment step, so they added it. I don't know per se whether it helps to get you back to your mark or not. I'm assuming it does. But usually we take an adjustment step, okay, when we change direction, so we can stay on the line where the opponent's coming. Because the opponent's going to come down to my center line if he's attacking into my body or head, so I want to stay on their line. In this case, the next opponent's behind me. So by taking an adjustment step, I'm just adjusting my distance from the opponent. So the actual application, if you are fast, you can adjust the distance so you get closer to the opponent. But if you were slower and you came in farther, you wouldn't make that adjustment step in actual application. At any rate, depends on where the opponent is, whether that step's needed. Okay, next movement. We're here. We make Gatan, uke, open hand. Right hand is kamae. Then Jodan ageuke, open hand. And Shuto mowashi uchi to temple. Okay? Bunkai is opponent's coming with a front kick. You parry, block the front kick. This is the in breath. Then he punches the face, you block the face punch, and you strike to his head at the same time. So he's coming, Maegiri punch, you Maegiri punch, same time. So the important thing is there's no need to move this foot toward the opponent, rather than just pivot. Okay? And you want the hip to turn really far to make this technique. Okay? From here, Maegiri, and uke to Jodan. Okay, tate, moashi, uke. The left hand, after the kick, the left hand extends forward. Okay, the meaning here is that you are either slapping down a punch, or you're grabbing the fist of the opponent as he punches, okay, and then pulling him into you as you strike. Okay. This is Sadachi. The important thing about Sadachi is your front foot must be straight forward. Your back foot is parallel, or your heel can be a little bit out. I'm sorry, you can't see. Your heel can be a little bit out in Sadachi. Okay? But you just squeeze your knees together and push your hip forward. So, moving into Sadachi, whether it's Basai Dai or Heian 4 or whatever Kata, a lot of people have trouble because they end up, their hip isn't far enough forward, and or they take too long with their hands. So to check yourself, is your hip forward enough? Make sure that your feet land pram, not pam-pam. Pam-pam means you left the hip behind. Okay, and you caught up later. So you want to you quick with the feet. Okay, quick with the feet. Okay. This is Tate Uraken. Important thing is some people come up center, some people come off the left shoulder and make an arc. Okay? You cannot do it from the right shoulder because your elbow has to come to the middle, whether it's here or here, has to come to the middle to make this into a vertical arc. So it will hit the person right here. If you have any angle to this technique, you will hurt the opponent, but you will not damage them severely. Okay? You need direct right angle strike, especially to try to knock the opponent out. And try to do this technique with as little pause here as possible. You want to quickly go into the back fist strike. Wait, next movement. Next. Kakiwaki uke. Okay, and the Sadachi, back stance. Important thing about the execution of this movement, although facing away from you, is you cannot turn and then make the block. Like any movement, your feet have to go toward their final position. Then kind of speed up on the in-breath, slow down on the out-breath, then make the block. All in one motion. So many beginners turn and stop, kind of hesitate, and then make the block. It should be all at once. Okay. Now, but what you do have to do is, if an opponent's coming from over there, that way, you can't come around and bring your hands up this way, because they're grabbing you here. You want to get your hands in between their arms. So this point, you have to be facing the opponent. Your arms have to face the opponent. Then the wedge block, you pry apart. This is executed with your palms facing you and cross your wrists. So you make as thin an entry between his arms as possible so you don't get caught on him. Straight up. And down. Okay, a little bit of this is okay. Going up and down a little bit, okay? But a lot of people are too much. Too much. That doesn't mean anything. As a matter of fact, you're either the opponent's grabbing you, you either go inside and you grab his arms here, like this, okay? Or you are curling to the inside. You're coming to the inside, and then you're pushing down with this part of the fist, this little nook created between the wrist and the fist, pushing down there and apart, okay, at an angle. Okay? This way. Important point about that is you can't do that if your fists aren't straight. If they're inward or something, nothing to pull down with you. So you got to have your fist straight, like a punch. Then you can do it. Then keep your elbows close to your body. Okay? And arms roughly parallel. Do not let your elbows come outside, or you'll lose power in this block. Opponent's coming. Pry his arms apart. In application, you're probably most of the time going to be stepping back to, if somebody tries to grab you. And this is what creates the distance that you need to make the next kick. Okay? So next, after you pry his arms apart, Maege Jodan and Uesugi and Gyakuzuki. Why Jodan? Because you don't have enough room to make a strong two-down kick. Okay? If you're fairly close to the opponent, and of course you need to be flexible, you can kick to the chin, get your knee up tight, and kick upward to the chin, and you can kick in a short space and make a strong, effective kick. Okay? So, what a lot of people make on this set of techniques is they kick, and then they go like this. Problem with that is, they should be done in quick succession. Problem with that is the first punch had no power. So especially when you're teaching beginners, you have to emphasize, deliver the power in the lunge punch. Then, only then, make the reverse punch. So, it should be a little quicker than that, and black belts can do it quicker, but you gotta make sure you are not losing power on the first punch. So, advanced black belts can make a snapping technique and make just as much power as if they stay there. But you have to check yourself, because you might just be fooling yourself. If you make too quick a succession and lose power, then the movement doesn't have any meaning. There are very few fakes in Kata. There's one in Unsu, but most of the techniques are full force techniques. So, in other words, if I was doing face stomach, the first one is just to get his guard up. Well, in Kata we don't have that. For the most part, each one is designed to injure the opponent, each technique. So, we have two of these. And okay. Then, from here, 3, Murote Uke, back stance. To make your kata real, make sure your blocks are close to the body, and that they whip. Can't be out here. They can't come up like this. The elbows stay close to the body. The block, while you're breathing in, the stance is moving toward, with the hips square, towards the opponent. Then, as you execute the outward motion of the block, that's when the hip twists. Breathing in, stance is going forward. That's when the hip twists on this part. We're going to make sure those two are timed together. Your block, this part of the block, not this part. This part is when you're in breath, your stance is moving straight forward. Then this part is when your hip twists open. Then you should be able to catch the timing. So many people don't have this timing, so they're one step block, one block step. The bodies and their arms are not connected because they don't have this idea of twist the hip as you finish the block, and they go together and snap together. Okay. Next one. Row 2, okay. This one is one count. You transfer your weight to the front leg. You grab the opponent by the head. You kiai, pull the head down to your knee. Then you turn and make knife hand block to the opponent behind you. In the old days, so you are the opponent, this was 2 counts. First, they made front stance, grab the opponent, and then make this one. The problem is, you just block the opponent's body is here. If you go make a wide stance, you've just moved off to the left. And it doesn't make as much sense. And that's why there's so many places in Kata and other Kata where the stance is narrower than normal. Because your opponent is down the center line, so you reach down. Reach down the center line. You don't need to make front stance here. You're just grabbing onto his head. So you don't need to be stable here. So that's why it's a quick motion. This is the in breath, in, out. Important mistake that some people make is not paying attention to the bunkai, and that where they pull their arms is sometimes kind of weird or random. So some people pull their arms to here. That doesn't make any sense, because if you're holding onto somebody's head, you pull it to here, that means you must have let go. Okay? Or else your knee went 2 feet into his head. You have to let go, but you don't want to let go. You want to bring your hands down next to your knee, okay, and not back to here, because if you pull the head to here, that means you're pulling the head to your groin, and that's not going to hurt the opponent. You'll miss with the knee. Okay, might hurt his pride. Okay, so pull to the knee. Okay, so an exercise you can do to get the feeling of focusing your arms, which means get your elbows close to your body and squeeze. Okay, is to cross your hands like this. And just practice focus the knee to the hands. That should be the feeling. Okay, because in actuality, if you're grabbing somebody's head, you'll probably have your arms crossed behind their neck. This is, unless they grab their long hair or something, or big ears, you grab their ears, this is not how you would grab them. This is this stylized, generic move in Kata. Application is you grab them around the neck and pull them in. Okay. Then, next movement. This movement, just like Heian has this movement. And I said that if you practice this with an opponent, you'll find that if he's trying to grab me or something, I slip between his arms, grab him by the back of the head, boom, I pull his body down, it's right here. Then I go like this. His elbow is going to be right into him. So this can be an elbow strike. Here, go, then last movement of the kata. So whenever we finish the kata with a block, think about the block not being a block, but being a strike. So in this case, like the series in Heian Shodan, you block the opponent, you grab his wrist, you cross, and you hit here or here for the last movement. So it's block, strike. If you think of this last movement as a strike, it will have a climax, end of conflict feeling. But if you just kiai onto here and just make a block feeling, it will be anticlimactic. Okay. The last piece of advice I give you is that a lot of people have trouble getting back to their mark in this kata. So there's two things. They end up going too far behind the mark. Okay? So the mark's back there. So there are two places you can make up for this. One is that this one, you want to go away from the mark. You want it to be a stance and a half, big long motion into close Sadachi. Get way from the mark. Okay? Then, a little bit where you are the mark in that direction. So I go this one, far, stance and a half. Okay? We want to stay away from the mark. So don't put this foot here and start going more toward the mark. Make this set very shallow. Not here, but here. Okay? Then if you make them deep, the angle, you'll move more into the mark. And since people end up behind the mark, you want to stay away from it. Okay. So experiment yourself. I think you find if you play with those angles, you can get on your mark with just those 2 points, the angles and a long stance and a half for the Gatan strike. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up our seminar on Heian Yondan. Next week, next Friday, we will go into Heian Gatan. And until then, train hard and train smart. We'll see you then.